The stadium was empty, the cameras were off, and for weeks, Patrick Mahomes said absolutely nothing, while the world speculated about his future, while analysts debated whether he would ever be the same, while fans held their breath and waited for news. The face of the league sat in silence. But silence cannot last forever, and what just came out of Kansas City has left the entire NFL world emotionally shaken. Mahomes has made his decision, and the way he delivered the news has everyone talking about something much deeper than football. It was never supposed to be this hard. Patrick Mahomes has spent his entire career making difficult decisions look easy: which defender to exploit, when to scramble and when to throw, how to balance aggression with intelligence in the most pressure-packed moments of a game. Those decisions come naturally to him. They always have. But the decision he faced this offseason was different. It was not about a single play or a single game. It was about everything. The torn ACL healed faster than anyone expected. The doctors cleared him for football activities ahead of schedule. The rehab that consumed 7 hours of every single day finally reached its conclusion. By every medical measure, Patrick Mahomes was ready to play football again. But being ready physically and being ready emotionally are two completely different things, and that is where the silence began. For weeks, Mahomes retreated from the public eye. He gave no interviews. He made no social media posts. He let the speculation swirl while he disappeared into his own thoughts. The media filled the void with theories. Some said he was considering retirement. Some said he was demanding a trade. Some said the relationship with the coaching staff had fractured beyond repair. None of them knew the truth, because Mahomes had not told anyone the truth. Not yet. The decision weighed on him in ways that fans could not see. This was not just about whether he could still play. He knew he could still play. It was about whether he still wanted to, whether the fire that had burned inside him since childhood was still hot enough to justify the sacrifice, the preparation, the pressure, the expectation that every season must end with a championship or it is a failure. People forget that Mahomes has already achieved everything a quarterback can achieve: multiple MVPs, multiple Super Bowls, a legacy that is already secure regardless of what happens next. He does not need to prove anything to anyone. So the only question that mattered was what he wanted for himself, and answering that question took longer than anyone expected. The moment finally came in a small room at the Chiefs' training facility. No cameras, no reporters, just Mahomes, Reid, and a few members of the front office. Mahomes walked in, sat down, and delivered his decision in a voice that was calm but heavy with emotion. He was coming back. Not because he felt obligated, not because of the money, because he was not finished, because the story was not over, because the ending that the 2025 season wrote was not acceptable to him. The people in that room said later that they had never seen Mahomes like that before. Vulnerable, raw, almost tearful at times. This was not the confident superstar who dances in the end zone and throws no-look passes on national television. This was a human being, confronting his own mortality as an athlete and choosing to fight anyway. That is why the decision has hit the NFL world so hard. It was not a press release. It was not a carefully crafted social media statement. It was real. To understand why Mahomes' decision carried so much emotion, you have to understand what the past year took from him. The Super Bowl loss to the Eagles was not just a defeat, it was a dismantling. Mahomes got sacked 6 times. He threw 2 interceptions in the first half. He watched a dynasty that he built with his own hands get torn apart on the biggest stage in sports. And for the first time in his career, he had no answer. The months that followed were worse. The 2025 regular season felt like a slow-motion car crash, an 0-2 start, a suspension to his best wide receiver, an offense that could not find any rhythm, loss after loss after loss. By the time December arrived, the Chiefs were fighting just to stay in playoff contention. This was not the team that had dominated the AFC for nearly a decade. This was a team that looked old, tired, and lost. Then came the tackle. The one that ended everything. Mahomes scrambled to his left, trying to make something out of nothing like he had done 1,000 times before. A defender hit him low, his left knee buckled, and the most durable quarterback of his generation crumpled to the turf. He knew immediately that something was wrong, not just for that game, wrong for everything. The MRI confirmed the worst fear: torn ACL, the kind of injury that ends careers, the kind of injury that makes you wonder if your body is telling you something that your heart does not want to hear. Mahomes had never faced anything like this before. He had never been forced to sit and watch while his team played without him. He had never had to confront the possibility that the best days might already be behind him. The rehab was brutal. 7 hours a day of exercises that tested not just his knee, but his sanity. Stretches that made him want to scream, lifts that felt impossible. And through it all, the voice in the back of his head asking the same question over and over again. Is this worth it? Is any of this worth it? There were nights when Mahomes could not sleep, when he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if he had played his last snap without even knowing it, wondering if the legacy he had built was complete or if there was more to write, wondering if he still had the hunger that had driven him since he was a kid throwing passes in a Texas backyard. People close to him say that period was the darkest of his life, not because of the physical pain, though that was real enough, because of the uncertainty. Mahomes has always known exactly who he is and what he wants. The injury took that certainty away. It forced him to ask questions that he had never needed to ask before, questions about identity, about purpose, about what comes after football. The decision to come back was not made in a single moment. It was made over weeks and months of struggling with those questions, of confronting the fear that he might never be the same, of accepting that even if he returned, the old Patrick Mahomes might be gone forever. He made the decision anyway, not because it was easy, because walking away would have been harder. When Mahomes finally broke his silence, he did not do it through a formal press conference. He did not issue a carefully worded statement through his publicist. He sat down for an interview that was supposed to be about football and turned it into something much more personal. The interviewer asked about his recovery, about his timeline for returning, about the team's prospects for the upcoming season. Standard questions, the kind he has answered 100 times before. But this time, Mahomes answered differently. He started talking about his father, about growing up watching him play baseball, traveling from city to city, learning what it meant to be an athlete at the highest level. He talked about the sacrifices his parents made so he could chase his dreams, about the pressure he felt to make all of that sacrifice mean something, about the fear that letting people down is worse than losing any game. By the time he got to the injury, his voice was cracking. He talked about lying in the hospital bed after surgery, looking at his phone, seeing thousands of messages from fans who said they were praying for him. He said he broke down crying right there in the hospital room, not because he was scared about his career, because he could not believe that so many people cared about him that much. He talked about Travis Kelce, calling him every single day during rehab, not to talk about football, to talk about life, to remind him that there was more to existence than throwing a spiral. He talked about Andy Reid driving to his house at 10 o'clock at night just to sit with him and watch film, not because the film was important, because Reid knew Mahomes did not want to be alone. The interview went viral within hours, not because of anything controversial, Mahomes said, because of how honest he was willing to be. Athletes at his level almost never show vulnerability. They've been trained since childhood to hide their emotions, to project confidence, to never let the opponent see them bleed. Mahomes bled on camera, and millions of people watched him do it. He admitted that he considered retiring. Not seriously, he said, but the thought crossed his mind, more than once, when the rehab felt impossible, when the knee would not bend the way it was supposed to, when he wondered if he could survive another season of getting hit by 300-pound men who wanted to destroy him. Those thoughts came, and he let himself feel them instead of pushing them away. By the end of the interview, Mahomes was not talking about football at all. He was talking about legacy, about what he wants people to remember when they think of his name. He said he doesn't care about the statistics or the awards or the comparison to Tom Brady. He cares about being remembered as someone who loved the game, who gave everything he had, who never quit even when quitting would have been easier. That is what broke hearts across the NFL world. not the decision itself, the honesty behind it. Patrick Mahomes, the greatest quarterback of his generation, admitted that he is just a person who doubts, who fears, who cries, and who keeps going anyway. The moment Mahomes announced his decision, the entire Chiefs organization shifted. Not because anyone doubted he would come back, because the way he came back changed something in the building. This was not the same quarterback who left. This was someone who had been through fire and emerged different, stronger in some ways, more vulnerable in others, and everyone who shares a locker room with him could feel the difference. Reid held a team meeting the day after Mahomes' interview aired. He did not talk about schemes or game plans. He talked about leadership, about what it means to follow a man who was willing to be honest about his struggles, about how Mahomes' decision to share his vulnerability made him more of a leader, not less. Reid said he had never been prouder to coach anyone in his entire career. The players felt it too. Travis Kelce spoke to the media with tears in his eyes, something that almost never happens. He talked about watching Mahomes struggle through rehab, about seeing his best friend at his lowest point, about wondering if the light would ever come back into his eyes. And then he talked about the moment when Mahomes called him and said he was ready. Kelce said he hung up the phone and cried like a baby. The younger players on the roster, the ones who never knew the Chiefs before Mahomes, suddenly understood something they had only heard about. The culture in Kansas City is not about winning, it is about family, about caring for each other when things fall apart, about showing up for the man next to you even when there's nothing in it for you. Mahomes built that culture, and his decision to return was the ultimate proof that he believes in it. The front office responded by going all in on the upcoming season. They restructured contracts to create cap space, they signed players who could help immediately, they made it clear that the window is not closing, it is reopening. And they are doing everything possible to give Mahomes the support he needs to write the final chapters of his legacy. But the most telling response came from the fans. Chiefs Kingdom had spent months wondering if their hero would come back. Some had already started making peace with the idea that the dynasty was over, that the magic had run out, that the greatest era in franchise history had reached its natural conclusion. Mahomes' decision shattered that resignation. It replaced it with hope, with excitement, with the belief that something special is still possible. The season tickets sold out within hours of the announcement. The merchandise sales spiked. The energy around Kansas City shifted from mourning to anticipation. The fans had their quarterback back, not just the player, the person, and that made all the difference.
Patrick Mahomes has never played a season with this much motivation. Not his rookie year when he was trying to prove the scouts wrong. Not his MVP seasons when he was chasing greatness. Not his Super Bowl runs when he was building a dynasty. This is different. This is personal. The injury took something from him, not just mobility or strength or any of the physical attributes that make him special. It took his sense of invincibility. Mahomes used to believe that he could overcome anything, that no deficit was too large, that no opponent was too strong. That belief was part of his power. It made him dangerous in ways that could not be measured, and the torn ACL shattered that belief into a million pieces. But something else grew in its place: humility, perspective, a recognition that every snap could be his last, that the game he loves could be taken from him at any moment. That is a terrifying realization. It is also a powerful one, because when you know that something can be taken, you appreciate it more. You fight harder for it. You refuse to waste a single opportunity. Mahomes has been using that realization as fuel. The people who have seen him work this offseason say he is different, more focused, more intense, more determined to prove that the 2025 season was an aberration, not a new normal. He is studying film with a desperation that was not there before. He is working on his body with a discipline that borders on obsession. He is preparing for war. The rest of the NFL should be terrified, not because Mahomes is healthy again, though that is scary enough, because Mahomes is angry, not at any specific person or team, at himself, at the circumstances that led to the worst year of his career, at the doubters who wrote him off.
That anger is going to be unleashed on every defense that lines up across from him, and there is not a defensive coordinator in the league who has an answer for a motivated, healthy, angry Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs are not the same team that won 3 Super Bowls in 5 years. The roster has changed, the coaching staff has been adjusted, the competition in the AFC is stronger than ever. None of that matters, because when you have a quarterback who has been to the bottom and decided to climb back, anything is possible. Mahomes said something in that interview that has been replayed thousands of times. He said that the 2025 season broke him. But breaking, he realized, is not the same as being destroyed. Sometimes you have to break so you can rebuild yourself into something stronger, something better, something that cannot be broken again. The NFL has been warned. Patrick Mahomes is back. Not the old Patrick Mahomes, a new one. One who has seen the darkness and refused to stay there. One who has every reason to quit and chose to fight instead. One who is coming for everything that was taken from him. The silence is over. The decision is made, and the most motivated quarterback the league has ever seen is about to take the field. Do you believe Patrick Mahomes will come back stronger than ever, or has the torn ACL changed him forever? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want to stay ahead of every breaking NFL story, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the Patrick Mahomes comeback story is just beginning.